Kathleen walked down the hall. She locked the front door again, then slid the chain into place. She double-checked the back. Her fingers paused at the deadbolt, as if even she didn't trust it would hold. In her bedroom, she opened the nightstand drawer. The papers were still there. Documents from the divorce, court filings, restraining orders she never fully trusted would be enforced. The paper trembled in her hand. She sat on the bed and whispered to the quiet, "If anything happens to me, look at Drew." She got up, almost against her will, and walked to the bathroom. The light flickered overhead. She ran a bath, warm water, rising steam. It should have been a moment of peace. Instead, it felt like a ritual. The next morning, a neighbor came to check on her after she didn't show up for a court hearing. She knocked. No answer. The silence was too quiet. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was damp and heavy. The bathroom light is still on. Kathleen lay in the bathtub, naked, bruises blooming along her back and wrists. Her head tilted, hair fanned out in the water like ink, but there was no blood, no mess, only stillness. And something off, like a painting hung just slightly crooked. The officer at the scene would later say it looked like an accident, but something in the room whispered otherwise. A town shrouded in trust in the heart of Illinois, where the prairie stretches beneath a sky heavy. With unspoken secrets, lies Bolingbrook, a suburb born in 1964, its youth a deceptive mask for the darkness it harbors. By the early 2000s, its population had surged past 70,000. A patchwork of strip malls, cul-de-sacs, and manicured lawns glowing under the eerie hum of sodium vapor streetlights. Bolingbrook was a place where neighbors exchanged smiles over picket fences, where the local police were not just enforcers but familiar faces, their badges gleaming like talismans of safety. These officers were the guardians of the town's trust, their presence a comforting rhythm in the quiet nights. But trust, as Bolingbrook would soon discover, was a fragile veil, easily torn to reveal a darkness that festered. At the heart of this tale stood Drew Peterson, a 50-year-old police sergeant whose 20 years on the force had woven him into Bolingbrook's fabric. His smile was disarming, his authority unquestioned, his eyes sharp with a knowing glint. Drew owned the Rusty Badge, a bar where locals gathered under flickering neon, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the clink of glasses. Whispers circulated that he'd park his squad car outside, its red and blue lights casting ominous shadows, waiting to snag tipsy patrons for DUIs. A cop's game, they'd chuckle nervously. Charismatic, confident, and cloaked in the town's faith, Drew seemed untouchable, but beneath his badge, a predator lurked, his shadow lengthening with each passing year. A storm brewing in the quiet of Bolingbrook's streets. Kathleen Savio was born in 1963, a year before Bolingbrook itself, in a gritty corner of Chicago's the immigrants, Antonio and Maria Savio. She grew up in a cramped apartment above their family deli, where the scent of cured meats and fresh bread mingled with the bustle of customers. The youngest of four, sisters Sue and Anna, and brother Marco, Kathleen was the family's spark, her dark curls bouncing as she darted through the deli, her quick smile lighting up the dim space. Her laughter echoed through the narrow stairwell, a melody against the grind of city life. The South Side was a crucible, its streets lined with temptation, drugs, gangs, dreams snuffed out like candles. Antonio and Maria instilled in Kathleen a fierce sense of right and wrong, their voices stern but warm as they urged her to rise above. She was a dreamer, sketching in notebooks by lamplight, her pencil tracing the curves of the human body, her mind set on becoming a nurse. She'd patch up Marco's scraped knees like she was already in scrubs, Sue recalled, her voice soft with memory. She wanted to fix people, to make them whole. School was Kathleen's sanctuary, where her sharp mind and relentless drive shone. Teachers marveled at her precision, her biology notes filled with meticulous diagrams, her questions probing and bright. But life was not easy. The deli's income was meager, and Kathleen worked weekends behind the counter, her small hands deftly slicing prosciutto, saving every penny for college. She saw friends fall to the South Side's pull, their futures swallowed by the streets. Kathleen vowed to escape, her ambition a beacon in the urban haze. At 18 she enrolled at Joliet Junior College, juggling nursing classes with shifts as a hospital aide. The hospital was a world of beeping monitors and sterile corridors, but Kathleen thrived, her empathy a balm for frightened patients. She had a gift, a professor said. She'd hold a patient's hand, and you could see their fear melt away. The grind was relentless, late nights studying anatomy, early mornings changing bedpans, but Kathleen's resolve, she graduated with an associate's degree in nursing, her family cheering as she crossed the stage, the first Savio to claim a college degree, her cap adorned with a single red rose from her mother. Her early 22nds were a time of fierce independence. Kathleen moved to Bolingbrook, drawn by its promise of suburban calm, a stark contrast to the South Side's grit. She rented a small apartment, its windows overlooking a quiet park, and landed a job at a local clinic. Her days were filled with patients, bandaging wounds, checking vitals, her nights with dreams of opening her own practice. She was vibrant, her laugh a burst of sunlight, her dark eyes warm with hope. But beneath her strength lay a vulnerability, a longing for love, for a family to call her own. It was this longing that led her to Drew Peterson. In 1992, at 29, Kathleen met Drew at a Bolingbrook community fair, where the air smelled of popcorn and cotton candy. He was 38, a police sergeant with a crisp uniform and an easy charm that drew eyes. To Kathleen, he was a protector, his badge a shield against the uncertainties of her past. Wind. Dinners at dimly lit diners, walks under Bolingbrook's starry skies, Drew's stories of life on the force captivating her. He spoke of saving lives, of keeping the town safe, and Kathleen, with her healer's heart, saw a partner in him. Within 6 months, they were married, Kathleen radiant in a simple white dress, Drew beaming at her side, his hand firm on hers. It felt like a fairy tale, Anna later said, her voice tinged with regret. We didn't see the cracks then. The couple settled into a modest brick house, its lawn neatly trimmed, its windows glowing with the promise of a new life. Kathleen gave birth to 2 sons, Thomas and Christopher, their cries filling the house with joy. She poured her heart into motherhood, her nursing skills making her a natural, soothing fevers, kissing scraped knees, but shadows crept in early. Drew's charm masked a controlling streak, his insistence on knowing her whereabouts, his sharp tone when she questioned him, his eyes narrowing at unknown numbers, his questions barbed. Where were you? Who were you with? Kathleen brushed it off at first, her love blinding her to the warning signs. In 1993, a year into their marriage, Kathleen visited a hospital with a bruised head, her story shaky. She'd hit a dining room table, she said. Her sisters, Sue and Anna, saw the marks, purple and angry, and pressed her. What happened, Kathy? Sue asked, her voice tight. Kathleen's eyes darted away, fear flickering like a trapped bird. I don't want to talk about it, she whispered, her hands trembling. The sisters exchanged glances, their suspicion falling on Drew. But Kathleen's silence protected him, a wall they couldn't breach. By 2001, the marriage was fraying, Drew's control tightening like a noose. Kathleen, once vibrant, grew quieter, her laugh rarer. Then came the letter, an anonymous envelope slipped into her mailbox, its single sheet of paper a dagger to her heart. Your husband Drew is having an affair with a 17-year-old named Stacy, it read, the words stark and cold. Everyone at the city center, they all know about it. It's been an ongoing joke within the department. Protect yourself and your family. Kathleen's world shattered, the paper crumbling in her shaking hands. She separated from Drew that day, moving into a small house with the boys. Her nursing salary stretched thin but her resolve ironclad. Chapter 3, The Silent House. The divorce was a battlefield, a 2-year war of venom and custody disputes. By February 2004, Kathleen was exhausted but hopeful, planning a divorce party to celebrate her freedom. She was set to drop off Thomas and Christopher for a weekend with Drew, a routine handoff in their fractured family. But when Drew and the boys arrived at her house, the windows were dark, the silence heavy as a shroud. Drew knocked, his breath clouding in the frigid air, the snow crunching under his boots. No answer. He knocked, his voice sharp. Kathleen? The boys fidgeted, their mittened hands clutching each other, sensing the wrongness. Drew dialed her phone, the ringing shrill and unanswered, echoing through the empty driveway. Maybe she's at the store, he muttered, though doubt gnawed at him, a predator's instinct stirring. They waited, the cold biting their fingers, the minutes stretching into an hour under the watchful gaze of the streetlights. Night closed in, the sky a bruise of indigo, and with school looming, Drew drove the boys back to his place, promising to check again tomorrow. The drive was silent, the weight of the empty house pressing on them, a specter in the rearview mirror. Morning brought no relief. Drew returned alone, the silence louder now, oppressive as a gathering storm. He knocked, called, waited, nothing. His police instincts kicked in, though whether driven by worry or calculation no one could say. His badge glinting like a cold star, his questions clipped. Have you seen Kathleen? Any trips planned? Anything strange? Most neighbors shook their heads, their faces creased with concern. But one, a woman named Ellen with wary eyes, hesitated. She gave me a spare key, she said, retrieving it from a drawer. For emergencies. Drew's pulse quickened, a faint tremor in his hand as he took the key. Ellen and another neighbor, Tom, trailed him back to the house. their footsteps heavy on the snow-dusted path. The lock clicked, the door creaked open, and the air inside felt thick, like a held breath before a scream. They called Kathleen's name, their voices bouncing off the tidy living room, the untouched kitchen with its lingering scent of coffee. Then, in the bedroom, they saw the bathroom door ajar, a metallic tang seeping out, sharp and wrong, like blood on a winter wind. Drew pushed it open, and the world tilted. Down in the bathtub, her damp hair splayed like dark seaweed across the tiles, blood streaking the walls in crimson rivulets from a jagged gash on her head. The tub was dry, drained, the scene unnaturally still, as if staged by a meticulous hand. Ellen gasped, clutching the doorframe, her knees buckling. Tom stumbled back, his hand over his mouth, retching. Drew stood frozen, his face a mask, shock, grief, or something colder, a predator's calm? No one could tell. Police swarmed the scene, their radios crackling like static in a nightmare. After a 2-month investigation, the verdict landed like a hammer: accident. Kathleen had slipped, hit her head, and drowned as the water drained. No struggle, no suspicious items, just a tragic fluke. The case was closed, the file shelved in a dusty precinct drawer. But to Kathleen's sons, now motherless, and her friends, who knew her vibrant spirit, the ruling felt like a lie, a puzzle piece forced into place. Kathleen had been planning a new life, her divorce party a beacon of hope. Now, and the town whispered, was it really an accident? A new bride, a growing shadow. Drew moved on with chilling speed, as if Kathleen's death was a chapter he'd already closed. Before her divorce was finalized, he'd married again. His fourth wife, Stacy, a 20-year-old with bright eyes and a trusting smile who worked in local government. They wed in October 2003. Their 3-month-old daughter, Lacey, already cradled in their arms, her tiny fingers clutching Stacy's veil. The haste raised eyebrows, but Drew was a cop, his word gospel in Bolingbrook's quiet streets. Stacy was young, barely out of her teens, her laughter a melody that lit up the rusty badge. Drew, at 49, reveled in her youth, a trophy to his ego. They settled into a brick house on a quiet street, its windows glowing with the illusion of suburban bliss. 2 more children, Anthony and another Lacey, filled their home with chaos and joy, their giggles echoing through the halls. The powder keg, Drew's control tightening like a vice. Stacy's friends noticed her spark dimming, her smiles forced, her eyes darting to the door during conversations. He's controlling, she confided to her sister Cassandra, in hushed tones, her voice trembling in the candlelit kitchen. I'm thinking of leaving him. On October 28, 2007, Stacy made plans with Cassandra to paint together the next day. They spoke late that night, their voices warm with sisterly banter, the phone line crackling with static. I'll be there by 10, Stacy said, her laugh bright but edged with something, an unease perhaps, or a secret she couldn't yet share. I'll call you in the morning. But morning came, and the call never did. By noon on October 29, Cassandra's worry turned to dread, a cold knot tightening in her chest. Stacy wasn't at home, wasn't answering her phone, wasn't anywhere. Touched in the driveway, its tires dusted with frost, her children left with Drew, who stood in the doorway, his face calm, his eyes unreadable. Cassandra's heart pounded as she dialed the police, her gut screaming, this isn't right. When detectives arrived, Drew's story was flimsy, almost rehearsed, his voice flat as he leaned against the kitchen counter. She called me last night, around 2 a.m., he said, his eyes steady, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Said she was leaving me for another man. Took off, just like that. Cassandra's blood boiled, her fists clenched. That's a lie, she snapped, her voice trembling with rage. Stacy would never abandon her kids. Friends echoed her, their suspicions zeroing in on Drew, his badge no longer a shield but a spotlight. And then there was the chilling echo. Kathleen, his third wife, had died in that eerie bathtub scene 3 years earlier, her death too neatly labeled an accident. Now Stacy was gone, and Bolingbrook's trust in its golden cop fractured like ice under a hammer. The news of Stacy's disappearance ignited Bolingbrook like a spark in a dry forest, fear and suspicion spreading through the town's quiet streets. Search parties formed, volunteers combing parks, woods, and drainage ditches, their flashlights slicing through the autumn dusk, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. Cassandra led the charge, her face etched with determination, her hands trembling as she pinned flyers with Stacy's smiling face, bright eyes, blonde hair, a smile that could light up a room, to every telephone pole, shop window, and community board. She's out there, she told herself, her voice a mantra against the doubt gnawing at her heart. The town buzzed with questions, whispered in coffee shops and grocery aisles. Where was Stacy? Had she really run off, as Drew claimed? Or was something darker at play, a shadow cast by the man who'd once been their protector? Stacy's absence was a void, a wound that refused to close, its edges raw and bleeding. Her friends painted a vivid picture of a devoted mother who'd never leave her children. 2-year-old Anthony, with his father's dark eyes, and 4-year-old Lacey, her blonde curls a mirror of her mother's. She was planning to leave Drew, her friend Lisa confided to police, her voice low, her eyes darting to the precinct's door as if expecting him to appear. She was scared of him, said he was always watching her, checking her phone, following her to work. Another friend, Maria, recalled a late-night conversation, the two of them curled up on Stacy's couch, a glass of wine trembling in her hand. She said she had something big to tell me, Maria said, her eyes welling. Something about Drew. She was supposed to call the next day, the timestamp a blank void. The police pressed him, their voices hard in the interrogation room's fluorescent glare. Where is she, Drew? What happened that night? He shrugged, his smile cold, his eyes glinting like polished steel. She's gone. That's all I know. His nonchalance was a slap, a stark contrast to the frantic searches unfolding across Bolingbrook, where volunteers waded through icy streams and brambles, their voices hoarse from calling Stacy's name. Cassandra's desperation grew, a fire in her chest that refused to dim. She retraced Stacy's last known movements, knocking on doors, pleading for answers under the watchful eyes of Bolingbrook's oaks. At a local coffee shop, a barista named Jenna recalled seeing Stacy on October 27, the day before she vanished. She seemed nervous, Jenna said, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes distant, kept looking over her shoulder, like she was expecting someone. She ordered a latte, but her hands were shaking when she paid. Cassandra's heart sank, a cold dread settling in her bones. Had Stacy sensed danger? Had she known something was coming, a shadow closing in? The police searched Drew's home, the brick house on Pheasant Chase Drive, its windows dark as if mourning its missing occupant. The interior was pristine, almost too perfect, the floors gleaming, the counters bare, as if scrubbed of any trace of Stacy. Her clothes hung neatly in the closet, her purse untouched on the kitchen counter, its contents, keys, wallet, lipstick, untouched, a snapshot of a life interrupted. But one detail stood out, a void as glaring as Stacy's absence. A blue plastic barrel, large enough to hold a person, was missing from the garage. A neighbor